There's been an upsurge of interest recently in the visions of Fatima. What we understand about those visions makes a significant difference of whether in the end time, in these last days, we'll be deceived or not.
In 1917, 3 shepherd children in Portugal reported visions of the Virgin Mary, who revealed prophecies that have since unfolded. 2 of these predictions have already occurred, leaving many to wonder about the third prophecy, a global catastrophe. As 2024 unfolds, speculation grows about whether this prophecy will come to pass. Join us as we explore the potential fulfillment of the third Fatima prophecy and its consequences for humanity. The century-old predictions of Fatima. The Three Prophecies of Fatima are a series of apocalyptic predictions and prophecies said to have been given to Lucia Santos and her cousins Jacinta and Francisco Marto by a Marian apparition starting on May 13, 1917. The 3 children claimed that they were visited by the Virgin Mary 6 times between May and October 1917. The apparition is now popularly known as Our Lady of Fatima. Lucia explained that around noon on July 13, 1917, the Virgin Mary entrusted them with what used to be 3 predictions. 2 of the prophecies were revealed in 1941 in a document written by Lucia at the request of José Alves Correa da Silva, Bishop of Leiria, to assist with the publication of a new edition of a book on Jacinta. In 1943, the bishop asked her to reveal the third revelation, but she struggled for a short period. Apparently, she was not yet convinced that God had authorized her to act. However, in October 1943, the bishop ordered her to put it in writing. Lucia then wrote the vision down and sealed it in an envelope, not to be opened until 1960, when it would appear clearer. The text of the third revelation was officially released by Pope John Paul II in 2000. But some claim that it was not the entire prediction revealed by Lucia, despite repeated validations from the Vatican to the contrary. According to various interpretations by the Catholic Church, the 3 prophecies involve hell, World War I and World War II, and 20th century persecutions of Christians. The Catholic Church has investigated hundreds of alleged Marian apparitions, but only 12 have received ecclesiastical approval, 9 of which occurred between 1830 and 1933. Cultural anthropologists Victor and Edith Turner, who converted to Catholicism in 1958, at one time viewed the increase in Marian apparition cults as a post-industrial reaction of a disenfranchised lower middle class to a rapidly changing culture. Sadly, the 2 cousins succumbed to the flu, and at the age of 14, the surviving Lucia was sent to the school of the Sisters of St. Dorothy in Vilar, near Porto. In 1928, she became a postulant at the Dorothean convent in Tui, just across the border in Spain. She continued to report private visions periodically throughout her life. In the mid-1930s, the Bishop of Leiria encouraged Lucia, whose religion was Sister Maria Lucia das Dores, to write her memoirs to disclose further details of her cousins and the apparitions of 1917. As early as July 1917, there were whispers about how the Lady of the Apparitions had entrusted to the children a revelation that was good for some and bad for others. It was not until her third memoir, written in 1941, that Lucia began to write more in detail about the content of the revelations. In this, she follows the French prophet Mélanie Calvat, who saw Our Lady of La Salette in 1846 and wrote down the prediction from that event almost 20 years later. Lucia wrote that the prophecy has 3 parts, the first 2 of which she revealed in 1941. The third, however, was not written down until January 3, 1944. The first revelation is not really what we could consider a secret in our common understanding. It is important to note that this is because these are not so much the prophecies of Fatima in reality as the divination of Fatima. The first prophecy was of hell. Lucia wrote that the Blessed Virgin showed the children what hell was like, complete with the suffering experienced by the souls who were there. The vision lasted only a second, but the children said that it was almost unbearable. It led to a great trust in the promise of Mary to lead her devotees to Christ, to save souls from this great eternal suffering. On the other hand, the second revelation is more along the lines of what we think a prophecy involves. In this revelation, the Blessed Virgin shows the young children a revelation in which they learn that World War I, which was going on during the time of the visions, will end. However, another world war will ensue under the papacy of Pope Pius V, who reigned from 1922 until 1939, unless people stop offending God and Russia is converted. The Virgin asked that Russia be consecrated to her Immaculate Heart. While the first two prophecies do not seem particularly alarming, the last one is so terrifying that it would make your hair stand on end. The Divine Forecast. Sister Lucia chose not to disclose the third vision in her memoir of August 1941. In 1943, she fell seriously ill with influenza and pleurisy. Bishop Silva, visiting her on September 15, 1943, suggested that she write the third revelation down to ensure that it would be recorded in the event of her death. However, even though she was sick, Lucia was hesitant to do so because, when she received the vision, she had heard Mary expressly telling her not to reveal it. However, she found herself in a quandary as to whose orders she should obey, because Carmelite obedience requires that orders from superiors be regarded as coming directly from God. Finally, in mid-October, Bishop Silva sent her a letter containing a direct order to record the prophecy. Lucia continued to struggle, even in the face of this direct order. However, according to her, she overcame it after the Virgin Mary appeared to her in early January 1944 and told her to write that which they commanded her, but not that which was given to her to understand its meaning. The third part of the vision was written down by order of His Excellency, the Bishop of Leiria and the Most Holy Mother, on January 3, 1944. In June of that same year, the sealed envelope containing the third revelation was delivered to Bishop Silva, where it stayed until 1957, when it was finally delivered to Rome. Canon Galamba, an advisor to the Bishop of Leiria, was heard to have said that the bishop refused to open the sealed envelope. Lucia made him promise that it would definitely be opened and released to the world at her death, or in 1960, whichever came first. It was announced by Cardinal Angelo Sodano on May 13, 2000, 83 years after the first apparition of the Lady to the Children in the Cova da Iria, and 19 years after the assassination attempt on Pope John Paul II. The third vision would finally be released. In his announcement, Cardinal Sodano implied that the revelation was about the 20th century persecution of Christians that culminated in the failed Pope John Paul II assassination attempt on May 13, 1981, the 64th anniversary of the first apparition of the Lady at Fatima. The idea of an already fulfilled prediction is contested by some Catholics. The text of the third prophecy, according to the Vatican, was published on June 26, 2000. The Catholic Church has permitted to reveal to the people the last part of the message. That the Blessed Virgin appeared to 3 children in Fatima, Portugal, in 1917 is already a proven fact, and one of these children is still alive. She is precisely the same Lucia, who is a cloistered nun and lives in a monastery in Portugal. The first pope to whom Lucia disclosed the message was Pope Pius XII, who after reading it, sealed it, and stored it away without making it public. Later, Pope John XXIII read it, and in the same manner as his predecessor, he kept it out of the public eye because he knew that once revealed, it would bring desperation and panic to humankind. Now the time has come, and permission has been granted from Pope John Paul II to reveal it to the children of God. This is in order not to create panic, but to make people aware of this important message so everybody can be prepared. According to the message, the Virgin told Lucia to go and directly tell the world what would come to pass during the 1950s and 2000s. Men were not practicing the commandments that the Father had given. Evil could be found everywhere, governing the world and harvesting hate and resentment all over. The vision revealed that men would fabricate mortal weapons that would destroy the world in minutes. Half of the human race would be destroyed. The war would begin against Rome, and there would be conflicts amongst religious orders. God would allow all natural phenomena like smoke, hail, cold, water, fire, floods, earthquakes, winds, and inclement weather to slowly batter the planet. These things would come to pass before the year 2010. Those who wouldn't believe were given another chance by the beloved Mother, those lacking charity towards others, and those who do not love their neighbor like Jesus had loved them all, would not survive. They would wish to have died. Millions are unimaginable. They would come, and there is no doubt that the Lord God would punish severely those who do not believe in Him, those who despise Him, and those who did not have time for Him. It was an obvious clarion call to come to Jesus Christ. While it is true that God helps the world, all of those who did not show fidelity and loyalty would be destroyed. Father Augustine, who lives in Fatima, said that Pope Paul VI permitted him to visit his sister Lucia, who is a cloistered nun, meaning that she does not leave the monastery, nor is allowed to receive any visitors. Father Augustine said that she received him, greatly overwhelmed, and told him that Our Lady was very sad because nobody seemed to be interested in her revelation of 1917. Though the righteous were walking through a narrow path, the evil ones were walking through an ample road that was leading them straight to their destruction. Lucia seemed to be more than convinced that the punishment would come very soon. Many souls would be lost, and many nations would disappear from the earth. But in the middle of all these, if men reflected, prayed, and practiced good deeds, there was a good chance the world could be saved. However, if men persisted with its evil, the world would be lost forever. The time has come for all to pass on the message of our Blessed Lady to their families, friends, and the entire world. The third prophecy is expected to occur in 2024. As for the remedy, people are urged to start praying, to make penitence, and to make sacrifices. It seems the world is at the last minute of the last day, and the catastrophes are near. Due to this, many who were far from the Church will return to the open arms of the Church of Jesus Christ. Humans are curious beings by nature. As such, the part of the revelation that captured the most attention is the part that has to do with the assassination of a great bishop dressed in white. The forecast of a bishop in white who was presumed to be the Pope, who was killed by having bullets and arrows fired at him, was naturally assigned to the failed assassination attempt on the life of Pope John Paul II. But some people claim that this cannot be the event, as the Pope did not die in the attempt, and the bishop in white in the vision does die. Therefore, some claim that the Pope being killed is a prediction of a future event. However, at the time the third vision text was released, Cardinal Ratzinger, one of the 20th century's greatest theologians, who would become Pope Benedict XVI, wrote an accompanying text. In it, he writes that the prediction will probably prove disappointing or surprising after all the speculation it has stirred. No great mystery is revealed, nor is the future unveiled. He further writes that the purpose of the vision is not to show a film of an irrevocably fixed future. Its meaning is exactly the opposite. It is meant to mobilize the forces of change in the right direction. Therefore, we must discount fatalistic explanations of the prophecy, such as, for example, the claim that the would-be assassin of May 13, 1981, was merely an instrument of the divine plan, guided by providence, and could not, therefore, have acted freely, or other similar ideas in circulation. Rather, the vision speaks of dangers and how we might be saved from them. This, however, did little to quell the excitement around this third revelation. In the latter part of the vision, it was revealed that a great war would happen. This war will destroy everything. Darkness will fall over us for 72 hours, 3 straight days, and the 1/3 of humanity that survives this obscurity and sacrifice will commence living in a new era. They will be good people. On a very cold night, 10 minutes before midnight, a great earthquake will shake the earth for 8 hours. This will be the third signal that God is the one who governs the earth. The righteous and those who propagate the faith and the message of the Lady of Fatima should not fear. What you probably don't know is that the vision of Fatima is only one of its kind. There are others, but interestingly, they are all interconnected. The connection between Fatima and Akita's divination. From the swiftness of Cardinal Ratzinger's positive response to the prophecy, Bishop Ito surmised that the cardinal, who was at the time the custodian of the third vision of Fatima, must have recognized the similarity of the Akita messages with that of Fatima, of which authenticity there was no doubt. Therefore, he approved his pastoral letter for immediate dissemination to the faithful. To better appreciate this connection between these messages, between those of Fatima in 1917, Amsterdam in 1945, and Akita in 1973, note their dates. Amsterdam occurred 28 years after Fatima, and Akita occurred 28 years after Amsterdam. And 28 years after Akita, it would be 2001, the first year of the third millennium. The late Pope John Paul II wrote in his book, Crossing the Threshold of Hope, that it seemed to him that as we approached the third millennium, the vision of Our Lady of Fatima given to the shepherd children would be fulfilled. The second correlation is the connection provided by heaven. Sister Agnes was taught by her guardian angel the Fatima prayers, which were dictated to the children of Fatima and also by the Angel of Portugal. The appearances of Our Lady of Akita and those at Fatima occurred on the 13th of the month. Her last appearance to Sister Agnes was on October 13th, 1973, on the anniversary of the miracle of the sun at Fatima. This led Bishop Ito to conclude that the Akita message was a continuation of the Fatima message. The third correlation is the apocalyptic content of all three messages. At Fatima, with its third vision now fully disclosed, we see an angel with a flaming sword about to scorch the earth when stopped by Our Lady in her splendor, which caused the angel to shout 3 times, "Penance, penance, penance," while pointing to the world. Sister Lucia, when asked by the late Pope John Paul II to elucidate on this vision, said that it is not God who is punishing us in this manner. Instead, mankind, by its transgressions, is bringing upon itself this scorching of the earth. Lucia said further that if it has not yet happened, mankind, through its sins of immorality and injustice, especially against the poor, is slowly but surely approaching this eventuality. While Our Lady had warned about great disasters befalling mankind, there was no mention of a massive earthquake that would hit Japan. This happened 10 years later when civil strife broke out, resulting in the slaughter that wiped out a great part of the population. While there's still a lot of debate surrounding the last prophecy, it is also a central subject for criticism. Some argue that the real vision was not released by the Vatican, the controversial secrecy in the Vatican. Before the 1930s, the main focus of devotion to Our Lady of Fatima was on the need to pray the Rosary for an end to World War I and world peace. It should be noted that the Fatima visions at that time were not widely known outside Portugal and Spain. After the publication of Sister Lucia's memoirs, starting in 1935, Fatima came to be seen as presenting the victory of the Blessed Virgin over communism. On February 8, 1960, the Portuguese news agency Agência Nacional de Informação published a news article stating that it was most probable the vision would remain forever under absolute seal. This announcement produced considerable speculation over the content of the vision. According to the New York Times, speculation ranged from worldwide nuclear annihilation to deep rifts in the Roman Catholic Church that led to rival papacies. On May 2, 1981, Lawrence James Downey hijacked an airplane and demanded that Pope John Paul II make public the third vision of Fatima. The release of the text sparked criticism from the Catholic Church in Portugal. Clergy, as well as lay people, were offended that the text had been read in Rome and not at the Fatima Shrine in Portugal, where the reported events took place. The Times, for June 29, 2000, reported that the revelation on Monday that there were no doomsday predictions provoked angry reactions from the Portuguese Church over the decision to keep the revelation secret for half a century. Critics such as Italian journalist and media personality Antonio Socci claim that the 4-page handwritten text of the third vision released by the Vatican in 2000 is not the real prophecy, or at least not the full revelation. The argument is based on different reasons. One of the arguments is that the text of the third revelation released by the Vatican is handwritten on 4 sheets of paper. Father Joaquin Alonso, the official Fatima archivist for 16 years, reports in his book that, according to Lucia's account, she wrote it on a sheet of paper. Later, in May 2007, Tarcisio Cardinal Bertone went on the Italian television program Porta a Porta and showed Lucia's document on camera. It was a single sheet of paper that had been divided twice, once vertically and then once horizontally. Lucia's handwriting was on both sides of the sheet of paper. The vertical squares were what the Vatican reproduced in June 2000. Another reason why critics argue the full third prophecy has not been released is because of indications that the third divine forecast was written in the form of a signed letter to the Bishop of Leiria. The text of the third revelation released by the Vatican is not written in the form of a letter. Lucia was interviewed by Father Jongen on February 3, 1946. When Father Jongen asked Lucia when the time would arrive for the third prophecy, Lucia responded that she had communicated the third part in a letter to the Bishop of Leiria. Also, recall that Canon Galamba, an advisor to the Bishop of Leiria, was heard saying that when the bishop refused to open the letter, Lucia made him promise that it would be opened and read to the world either at her death or in 1960, whichever came first. Antonio Socci, however, questioned how strictly one should interpret the word letter. Furthermore, the text of the foresight is supposed to contain words attributed to the Blessed Virgin Mary. However, the text of the third prediction released by the Vatican contains no words attributed to the Blessed Virgin Mary. Socci asserts that the third divine forecast probably begins with the words, "In Portugal, the dogma of the faith will always be preserved," etc., words that Lucia included in her 4th memoir, but which are included only as a footnote to the text released by the Vatican. Lucia, however, stated in her 4th memoir that she was not going to reveal the third part. Critics also argue that the document contains information about the apocalypse, apostasy, and satanic infiltration of the Church. In an interview published in the November 11, 1984 edition of Jesus magazine, Cardinal Ratzinger was asked whether he had read the text of the third revelation and why it had not been revealed. Ratzinger acknowledged that he had read the third prophecy and stated in part that the third revelation involves the importance of the novissimi and dangers threatening the faith, the life of the Christian, and therefore the life of the world. Ratzinger also commented that if it is not made public, at least for the time being, it is to prevent religious forecasts from being mistaken for a quest for the sensational. Also, Howard D., former Philippine ambassador to the Vatican, was interviewed by Inside the Vatican in 1998. D. claimed that Cardinal Ratzinger had personally confirmed to him that the messages of Akita and Fatima were essentially the same. The Akita prophecy, in part, contains the work of the devil, which will infiltrate even into the Church in such a way that one will see cardinals opposing cardinals, bishops against bishops, churches, and altars sacked. On May 13, 2000, Cardinal Sodano announced that the third prediction would be released, during which he implied the prediction was about the persecution of Christians in the 20th century that culminated in the failed assassination attempt on Pope John Paul II on May 13, 1981. In a syndicated radio broadcast, Malachi Martin stated that the third prediction doesn't make any sense unless we accept that there will be, or that there is in progress, a wholesale apostasy amongst clerics and laity in the Catholic Church. In a 1980 interview for the German magazine Stimme des Glaubens, published in October 1981, John Paul II was asked explicitly to speak about the third prediction. He said that because of the seriousness of its contents, in order not to encourage the worldwide power of communism to carry out certain coups, his predecessors in the chair of Peter had diplomatically preferred to withhold its publication. On the other hand, It should be sufficient for all Christians to know this much, if there is a message in which it is said that the oceans will flood entire sections of the earth, and that from one moment to the next, millions of people will perish. There is no longer any point in really wanting to publish this prophecy message. He went on to say that many want to know merely out of curiosity or because of their taste for sensationalism, but they forget that to know implies for them a responsibility. It is dangerous to want to satisfy one's curiosity only if one is convinced that we can do nothing against a catastrophe that has been predicted. Holding up his rosary, he stated that it was the remedy against this evil. According to him, one should just pray and ask for nothing else, putting everything in the hands of the Mother of God. When asked what would happen in the church, he said we must be prepared to undergo great trials in the not-too-distant future. Trials that will require us to be ready to give up even our lives and a total gift of self to Christ and for Christ. Through prayers, it is possible to alleviate the tribulation, but it is no longer possible to avert it because it is only in this way that the church can be effectively renewed. How many times, indeed, has the renewal of the church been affected by blood? This time, again, it will not be otherwise. John Paul urged people to be strong, to entrust themselves to Christ and His Holy Mother, and to be attentive, very attentive, to the prayer of the Rosary. However, Joseph Cardinal Ratzinger denied that John Paul II made these remarks during the June 26, 2000 press conference that saw the publication of the Third Revelation. According to one source, Lucia was allegedly asked about the third prediction and remarked that it was in the Gospels and the Apocalypse on May 13th. And at one point she had even specified Apocalypse chapters 8 to 13, a range that includes the book of Revelation 12:4, the chapter and verse cited by Pope John Paul II in his homily in Fatima on May 13th, 2000. So there you have it. The hidden prophecies of Fatima have been brought to light.